Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 12th. We have a big day of sports ahead of us. Football kicks off today in Week 6 of the NFL. Week 7 of college football already underway. We'll talk about some of the game picks for Thursday's game for both the NFL and college football. We're going to break down the 4 games that took place yesterday in the AL and NLCS. One team advanced. We'll talk about that. And of course, new Jets news. New Jets drama as the coaching change continues to send ripples across the Jets organization. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with the message in it. Or, if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to start off our show today getting into the Jets drama. The New York Jets, one day after firing their former head coach, Robert Saleh, have now made another coaching change. They have, for all intents and purposes, demoted Offensive Coordinator Nathaniel Hackett to he's not calling the plays anymore. Instead, calling the plays will be passing game coordinator for the New York Jets, Todd Downing. Todd Downing comes into the Jets after spending a little bit of time with taking over for Arthur Smith in the Tennessee Titans as an offensive coordinator. He was an offensive coordinator over there in 2021 and 2022, the years where, that offense kind of went downhill. So that's not the greatest look at him. He also served time as the offensive coordinator of the then Oakland Raiders, the Raiders, when Derek Carr was good. He was the offensive coordinator in 2017. He was the passing game and quarterbacks coach, the role he currently has with the New York Jets in 2016, and he's credited with getting Derek Carr his best statistical season back in 2016, the year that he ended up getting hurt down the stretch and the Raiders lost their playoff game. But the first Pro Bowl Raiders quarterback since 2002 is supposed to be the credit of this guy, Todd Downing. Todd Downing takes over, and obviously his pedigree as a play caller hasn't been the best. But as we were talking about this issue, as we were talking about what was going on with Robert Saleh, why they fired Robert Saleh, there's that whole argument about whether it was Aaron Rodgers or not. Aaron Rodgers comes out on the Pat McAfee show and says it's patently false, wasn't him. He hates that he's being accused of this. I think that's a half-truth. I think it's literally impossible that Woody Johnson fired Robert Saleh without anything being said from Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers said something as simple as, I'm a little frustrated with Saleh's coaching. Maybe he said something as just like a slip of the tongue like that. Like, maybe he's telling the truth. They never talked about it. But sometime in that conversation Woody Johnson and Aaron Rodgers had, Aaron Rodgers said something along the lines, or I assume he said something along the lines of, hey, I don't like the coach. And Woody Johnson, he's the one that probably made the decision, not Aaron Rodgers. I bet you that much is true. But the fact that Aaron Rodgers had no reason or no help in deciding this, I think, is ridiculous. And now Nathaniel Hackett, a guy that Aaron Rodgers has traveled with Aaron Rodgers basically his whole career. The Denver Broncos hired him because they thought they could get Aaron Rodgers. He didn't survive a full season as the coach over there. He's not named the interim. In fact, he is demoted. That was smart. They needed to change offensively. When we were talking about this move, we were saying how it doesn't make any sense because the defense is playing good. The issue has been Aaron Rodgers and the offense. Now you get a new play caller. I honestly don't know what it's going to do. I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference. But we take a look at, just something being done to address that offense, to address the offensive issues. It's not like Aaron Rodgers wasn't basically an offensive coordinator on the field already. I think getting new play calls, fresh eyes to call the plays, I think that is going to make a huge difference, honestly. Maybe they're able to get the run game going a little bit. That's not on Aaron Rodgers. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to be a little smarter with the football, not turn the ball over as much as he has been in the early weeks of this season. I think this switch is a good move. I think they needed to do something. This isn't a massive difference, and if it doesn't work, they can just give it back to Hackett. This isn't a do or die, Hackett, you're done kind of situation. This is just the kind of change that needed to be made, and they made the change. That's what we're looking at right now. I do like this move a lot. Nathaniel Hackett out as the play caller, still the offensive coordinator, just no longer calling plays for the New York Jets. But let me know what you thought. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to switch our attention over to the game picks. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, we're going to do a preview of the 49ers as they travel to Seattle to take on the Seattle Seahawks. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 10th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the demotion of Nathaniel Hackett over in New York. The Jets, another coaching move as the drama continues. We're going to continue on with our NFL today, this time talking about Thursday Night Football, a big matchup in the NFC West, could decide the top of the division. We'll see what happens. A massive matchup between a division that's been a little bit underwhelming. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you'd like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 10th. But like I was saying, getting into Thursday Night Football preview, the 49ers travel to Seattle. The 2-3 San Francisco 49ers travel to the 3-2 Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks currently on top of the division, ahead of the 49ers and the Cardinals, who both sit at 2-3 so far in the season. This is a huge game early on in this division. The 49ers have not been nearly as dominant as we expected them to be, and a lot of that is because they don't have all-world, all-time superstar Christian McCaffrey at running back, and we're starting to see a little bit of the effects of it. It's been pointed out a lot recently that this offense looks completely different without Christian McCaffrey. It looks like the Shanahan offense, and that's just putting a lot more pressure on Brock Purdy. But the way that Brock Purdy is reacting to that pressure is different than a lot of people thought. He's doing solid, he's doing fine, but he's making a lot more mistakes than he would have otherwise. He's holding on to the ball a lot longer than he would have in past seasons, and that's been a huge difference. Now, the Seahawks defense has been noticeably beatable these last couple weeks. They started off 3-0 against some not very good teams. Then they run into the Lions, one of the best teams in the NFL, and just got absolutely battered on defense. Their offense does enough to keep up, though, so they still look like one of those top teams in the NFC. Then the Giants come to town, and that defense could not stop the Giants. They were just moving up and down the field, granted, very slowly. They didn't give up many of those big plays that they were giving up to the Lions, especially in the second half, but it was just matriculate the ball down the field slowly but surely. The Giants are going to get down the field. The Giants held the ball for 3/4 of that game. That's a ridiculous amount of time for a team to hold on to the ball. The offense barely could get anything going on their own, especially in the first half. Outside of a 101-yard fumble return for a touchdown, the Seahawks looked kind of lost out there, and that was 4th and goal from the 1-inch yard line. Seahawks made a big stop there. They lose pass rusher, they lose one of their pass rushers there early on in the game. He goes on IR. They're down another one of their pass rushers. It's not looking good for the Seahawks defense. And if the Niners were going to get a get-right game, this is going to be the one. This is the one that they were looking, that they needed pretty badly. There is a blueprint to beat these Seahawks, and we will see if the Seahawks learn or the 49ers are able to take advantage of that. And that's going to be the big question. The Niners favored by 3.5 in this one. This is going to be hopefully a good game. We've gotten a couple of good Thursday night games already. Obviously, last week, 509 yards put up by Kirk Cousins is insane in an overtime game over there. I don't think it's going to be anything like that. This game is going to be a boat race. The Niners defense has been good, but it hasn't been great, and that's another issue. Everything on the Niners seemingly has taken a half step back. It's still great, but it's not elite, right? You take a look at what this team, how high the level this team had been performing at for 2-3 straight seasons, making deep runs into the postseason. Now I feel like the fatigue is starting to catch up to them a little bit. Not having Christian McCaffrey on the offensive end is starting to catch up a little bit. But still, this is a team that's capable of beating any team any week. You can't take them lightly. This is a very, very good San Francisco team. They still have George Kittle, who's going to come in. He's supposed to be good to go for Thursday. But this is an interesting season for the Niners. Regardless of what happens, this is kind of a referendum on how good Brock Purdy really can be. And we're getting to the point of we need to ask whether or not Brock Purdy gets a contract. This is a massive game. If the 49ers fall to 2-4, they're not out of it because of the way the division is. Again, the Seahawks are currently on top of the division. If they win, they'd be 4-2. That's not a gap that's not a gap that you can't make up, right? It's not a gap you can't beat. But it makes it a lot harder. It really does. And that would be a huge get-right game for the Seahawks. This is a get-right game for both of these teams. And it's a division game in Seattle where that 12th man is loud. It is going to be a lot of fun, a raucous atmosphere, and I'm very excited to see it. I'm leaning towards the 49ers in this one, though, just because there seems to be a blueprint. We saw Daniel Jones cook against this Seattle Seahawks defense, and maybe that's just because Daniel Jones had one of his 2 or 3 good games for the year, right? That's how Daniel Jones is. We saw it once in very limited capacity before he tore his ACL early on into last season. He had one of those good games against the Cardinals, one of his best games ever, one of the best performances in a half of football by a quarterback that I have seen in a very long time. And then he goes down and he was bad for the rest of the season. But we saw it against the Seahawks. Maybe that was just his good game for a little while, right? Or maybe the Seahawks defense really is that beatable. Maybe there is a blueprint. Either way, the Seahawks defense needs to show me something so that I can respect it the way that I want to be able to respect a Mike McDonald defense. But until then, I'm leaning towards the 49ers in this one. Again, a 3.5-point spread. I think this is going to be a close one, but I think the Niners take it 27-18. Let me know what you think in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Who wins this game? How much do they win it by? What's your final score prediction? But we're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we are going to take a look at the 3 college football games from today, and we're going to preview all of them. There's one headliner, 2 kind of meh games, but we're going to take a look at all 3 of the college football games that take place today. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube. Absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube, absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 10th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over and previewing the Thursday night football matchup, a huge NFC West matchup between the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. I asked what you thought. Andre said them not having Tariq Woolen makes me lose all faith. I think that's a great thing to bring up as well. Their secondary is battered, not just their pass rush. Their whole defense is battered, but that defense needs to step up this week if they want a chance to win this game. But in this segment, we're going to take a look at the 3 college football games for today. One headliner in the Sun Belt as the James Madison Dukes take on the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, and 2 other games, not quite as big of matchups, but still could be pretty big as far as seeding goes, or taking a look at the other outlook in college football. But before we get into that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you are on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those 2 things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you'd like to ask, go and throw that in the comments, throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some college football predictions here. We're going to start off with some of the smaller games here tonight. First one we're going to take a look at is MTSU, Middle Tennessee State University, coming in at 1-4, taking on Louisiana Tech. Louisiana Tech favored by 4.5 in this one. This game, again, there's only one real headliner here, so I'm just going to go real quick through these other 2. This game, I think, has a chance for MTSU, but the way they've been playing, they've looked like one of the worst FBS teams in all of college football right now. I don't have any faith in them. I'm taking Louisiana Tech to win this one, not by a huge margin, but to take this one. The other one, UTEP, still completely defeated, takes on Western Kentucky. A big game for Western Kentucky. Pretty sure they're premiering their new helmets. I love their new helmets there, but they should absolutely destroy UTEP. We talk about MTSU being one of the worst teams in college football. UTEP has undeniably been worse. It is not even close. UTEP has gotten almost no offense going. Their defense, I mean, it's awful. Everything about that team is not very good. WKU should roll. But getting into the headliner game, as Coastal Carolina travels to Harrisonburg, Virginia to take on James Madison. This one has been changing. I mean, even before the show started, the line has already changed a couple times. Currently, it's sitting at James Madison -7.5. When we came in, it was at -9.5, -8, -7. It keeps, excuse me, it keeps moving all up and down here. This game should be a lot of fun. James Madison had some playoff buzz before falling in their last matchup to University of Louisiana Monroe, ULM. They're looking to come back. This is a huge matchup for them. Since joining the Sun Belt, JMU has dominated Coastal. Coastal, one of the Sun Belt powerhouses. They came in, made a big stink earlier on. Their one loss is to Power 5 school Virginia. So a quality loss for them. If Coastal's able to win this game, they might vault up to the top. Maybe they have a shot if the right things happen in the Mountain West with Boise State, UNLV, and the American with the service schools. Maybe Coastal can find a way into the playoffs. If JMU wins, it's just a huge get-back game for them. I think JMU, again, is a very good football team. If you've been paying attention to my rankings in the group of 5 top 5, they made it all the way up to number 3 in that ranking as right before taking that loss. They were a team that was in playoff conversation. They're a team that's done nothing but win every single year. New head coach after losing Kurt Signetti and most of their roster to Indiana. Indiana, the one and only currently qualified bowl team. So you see how talented that JMU team from last year was. But this is a completely different team. And we've seen them play down to their opponents or not be able to step up in the moment. We've also seen the opposite. This team goes as their quarterback, Alonzo Barnett III, goes. He is a guy that's not going to be consistent, but when he's on, he's up there with just about anybody, in the country. You saw it against North Carolina, being able to put up 70 points, and then the week after, coming back home, not having a letdown game, putting up 63 more, scoring a touchdown on every single drive. That's how you want to. That's how you want to answer. And then they put up a stinker in this game. The defense plays solid. I'm leaning towards James Madison. James Madison, like I said, their history versus Coastal, they've played twice since JMU entered the Sun Belt. And in those matchups, JMU has destroyed them every single time. I'm talking by 30, 40 points each at the end of the season. None of them have the first one at home for James Madison, the second one on the road on that teal field for the Chanticleers. I don't think this game is very different from the way it's been in the past between these two teams. I hope it's a close game. That should make for some good television tonight. But James Madison hosting Coastal Carolina, I think they win this game pretty handily. I think they get back to what they were doing 2-3 weeks ago. Drop 57 on Coastal, give up 30. I think they continue their trend of just dominating Coastal, but that is, again, assuming Alonzo Barnett is having one of his games and the receivers aren't dropping it. The play calling was very bad for JMU down the stretch. We'll see if they were able to fix that. I haven't seen them be good in close situations. So if the game stays close down the stretch, I think I lean towards Coastal. But otherwise, I think JMU takes this in a blowout. But let me know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts on these college football games. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to turn our attention to baseball. All 4 series played a game yesterday. We had our first team advance to the championship series. We'll talk about that and everything else that happens, including some pivotal game 5s being set up and game 4s being played tonight. We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 10th. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over the college football games and the Thursday night football game taking place tonight. In this segment, we turn our attention to baseball. That's what we will finish off our show on. The next two segments dedicated to the AL and the NLDS. One team moves on. That's the New York Mets. We'll talk about the NLDS first, everything that happened last night before taking a look over at the ALDS and predicting some games as they get to elimination games in Game 4 tonight. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. Or if you are on YouTube, you can do the exact same thing with the Super Chat feature. If you have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, just go and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 10th. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the MLB playoffs. The MLB playoffs have been awesome so far. Near walk-offs, some back-breaking losses, back and forth series, some absolutely heated rivalries, and as we see in our first team to move on, a near walk-off grand slam, a statement win by the New York Mets. They seem to have a lot of those recently to advance to this round. Pete Alonso, ninth inning, 3-run absolute bomb to right field to advance over Milwaukee. Huge swing of the bat for him. In a very similar situation, the Mets losing, getting shut out with one of their best players at the plate in Francisco Lindor. Bases are loaded, down 1-0. Nothing has been able to be scratched across offensively for these New York Mets. And once again, a massive swing. Francisco Lindor, a grand slam to put the Mets on the board. Not only that, with the way that their pitching has been, now back-to-back series, two of their headline players, Francisco Lindor, a guy who probably will finish second in MVP voting, and Pete Alonso, who's been the heart and soul of this Mets team, have moved them on near single-handedly. Now, obviously, runners had to be on base for all this to be an issue, for all this to happen, but these massive swings, the energy around New York right now, at least on the Mets half of the city, is awesome. And we'll get to the Yankees in the next segment, but the Mets, we talk about teams of destiny. We talk about the Nationals all the time being 19-31, 12 games under 500. The Mets were 11 games under 500 at one point, and they went through that whole graphic last night if you were watching the baseball game of the resurrection of the Mets. And I thought that was a really cool timeline there. Again, 22-33. We have a Grimace first pitch. And that's just been what some kind of Grimace voodoo magic is on the Mets right now. They keep finding ways to win, and honestly, when it comes to postseason baseball, those are the vibes you need to have. You need to have everyone bought in, the clubhouse together, having a lot of fun, and you see that. This might be the last year for Pete Alonso. Heart and soul of that team. I doubt he goes anywhere else if he wins a World Series. Maybe even takes a discount, although I doubt that with the pockets that the Cohens have owning the Mets. I doubt that he's going to take a discount. They'll just pay him. But the Mets are the first team to advance to the championships series. They are going to take on one of the two California teams, whether that be the San Diego Padres or the Los Angeles Dodgers. We will find out tomorrow. A winner takes all. Game 5 in LA between The Padres and the Dodgers, the most heated rivalry that is currently playing. There were three division matchups, and you might think the one that's going to have the most juice would be the Phillies and the Mets, with the way that Phillies fans are. Mets fans being from New York, when their team is good, they get a little loud. But no, the one with the most juice, the one with the most animosity as far as off the field goes and on the field, is between the Padres and the Dodgers. This was hyped up to be the series. Obviously, we've got to see Shohei Ohtani being able to play in his first action in October. That is awesome. We've got to see some awesome pitching matchups. The great plays out in the outfield by Turks and Profar. Fernando Tatis just absolutely destroying the cover off of baseballs. It has been so much fun, a back and forth series if there ever was one. The San Diego Padres, with a chance to close it out at home last night, cannot quite get the job done. They get absolutely boat raced out of there. They had one of their better pitchers going for them, and they just couldn't get anything going. Losing 8-0, a game where they didn't ever seem like they were going to get anything going, right? You had Dylan Cease, who was a huge pickup from the White Sox earlier on. Now had a chance to move his team to the NLCS. Puts up a stinker. 1 2/3 innings, 4 hits, three earned. And you can't just say you can just say it's the Dodgers. That Dodgers team is awesome. But Mookie Betts once again starts off the scoring in the first inning. This would be his third straight game with a home run to left field. With a home run, this one goes to center. 2 games ago, obviously, he got robbed. Now, second straight leadoff home run or first inning home run for him. That's been huge. Shohei has been, I won't say silent, but quiet in this series. You can only really shut down Shohei Ohtani so much. This is going to be a huge, huge matchup coming up on Friday. The Padres head over to LA. The Dodgers' favorite. Looks like the Padres are going to throw Yu Darvish. Once again, the Dodgers are undecided. Not sure if they're going to pull out all the stops, throw Yoshi again. Maybe they're going to, wait, see if they can do another matchup of Game 2 between Yu Darvish and Jack Flaherty. Jack Flaherty, who's been awesome for the Dodgers since coming over from the Tigers at the trade deadline. This is going to be a huge game. Obviously, these two teams do not like each other. It's a little bit of a big brother, little brother rivalry over there, and I am so excited for this game on Friday. But we're going to have to wait and see. For now, the baseball we have today is from the AL. We have 2 massive matchups, 2 Game 4s. We're going to talk about what happened in Game 3 in both of those series and preview Game 4 for both of those coming up next. So make sure you stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Thursday, October 10th. Excuse me. If you were just tuning in, we just went over the NLCS. Francisco Lindor with a grand slam to send his team to the championship series, setting up a matchup that they'll find out on Friday with a winner-take-all in LA between the Padres and the Dodgers, after the Dodgers completely blank the Padres, winning 8-0, just absolutely demolishing that team. Home runs from Mookie Betts, Gavin Lux, Will Smith. They just absolutely demolished them. In this segment, we're taking a look at the other side of the MLB playoff coin, the AL. We have two massive Game 4s, two teams that could get eliminated tonight, and we'll talk about how we got there with the Game 3s and predict Game 4 for both of these series. But before we do that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you are on YouTube, you can do the same thing on YouTube by using the Super Chat feature. Same thing. A message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else to see. Appreciate anything you guys do give. And if you have a burning question about sports, anything at all you'd like to ask, throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Thursday, October 10th. But like I was saying, we're going to finish off our show here talking about the AL side of the MLB playoffs. What a wild playoffs it has been so far. And we have two Game 4s, two elimination games taking place tonight. One of them, first pitch, is at 6:08, so right after our show, we can spend the rest of the night watching baseball and football and everything else that's going around, hockey if you're into that as well. But starting off with the game that has its first pitch right after we get off the air, that is the Detroit Tigers hosting the Cleveland Guardians with a chance to advance to the ALCS. The Detroit Tigers, we talked about the Mets, how they had that right energy, that right vibe around them. You have to be hot at the right time, and that's part of it too. The Tigers have gone through their own little mini resurrection. They sold at the deadline. We talked about Jack Flaherty, how he was on the Tigers, traded to the Dodgers. They were selling. They were ready to go out, prepare for next season. But no. Instead, the Tigers go on a heater. An absolute heater. They are the hottest team at baseball heading into the playoffs. They had a 0.2% chance on August 11th, a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. And now they are hosting a playoff game with the chance to advance. They could advance to the ALCS on their home field tonight. But this is how we got here. Last night, the Detroit Tigers hosted the Cleveland Guardians. It was an afternoon game, happened while we were live. The end of it did. And once again, the pitching for the Tigers, they didn't even have Skubal in this one, but the bullpen was efficient. They were able to escape some early jams that they got in by Herter, who went 3 1/3 innings, and they did not let the Cleveland Guardians score. For the second straight game, the final score was 3-0. No fireworks at the end, no drama like that, but the Cleveland offense needs to get some life going. That is now 2 straight games where they have been held scoreless. They've combined for no runs and 9 hits in the last 18 innings of baseball that they have played. That is unacceptable for playoff level baseball. You're supposed to have some bats. Josh Naylor came in playing some really good baseball. Jose Ramirez, one home run shy of a 40-40 season, probably the quietest near 40-40 season ever. They need to get his bat going. Lane Thomas had a home run in Game 1, but he's been kind of quiet since coming over at the trade deadline. This is a Guardians team that desperately needs some guys not named Stephen Kwan to come through. Stephen Kwan is doing his thing. He's hitting .455 in the playoffs. He's not a power guy, though. He's not going to be able to push you through. They need their big boys to step up. They need a big game from Jose Ramirez in this one. But the Tigers, one game away from making it to the ALCS, and on the mound tonight for them, it's going to be Reese Olson. the other half of their starting pitching duo. We talk about Tariq Skubal for good reason. Tariq Skubal is awesome, but Reese Olson has been not equally as awesome, but really good this year. He's been that back half, that number 2 to Skubal's number 1. The Guardians throwing Tanner Beebe, who was the guy that they put up against Skubal earlier on in the series. This is a must-win game. This should be a fun pitching matchup. That's been the theme of it, right? Great pitching throughout this series, which is not what you expected out of these teams, out of the Guardians at least. The Guardians have good pitching, don't get me wrong, but shutdown pitching has been their starting pitching has probably been their biggest weakness. The Tigers, outside of Skubal, Reese Olson, have not had the greatest starting pitching. It's the bullpen for the Guardians. It's the offense for the Tigers that has been really pushing them, and Skubal, of course. But still, this is a huge matchup, and I expect this to be low scoring, just like the rest of them have been. I'm not saying it's going to be another 3-0 outcome, but still, this should be a low scoring one. Whoever strikes first is going to win this game. That's how it's been all series long. Obviously, game 1, Cleveland hops out to a big first inning lead, blanks the Tigers. Then Tigers get on the board first in game 2 in the 9th inning. Of course, no one scores until the 9th inning. They blank the Guardians. And then last night, the Tigers get on the board first, this time in the first or second inning, and they blank the Guardians again. So it's just going to be a matter of who gets on the board first, and I am leaning towards the Tigers in this one. I think the Tigers clinch the championship series, and then sit back and watch the Royals take on the Yankees in an elimination game, potentially a Game 5 coming on Saturday. But talking about that Yankees-Royals series, that has been an equally close one. Both of these teams have been, I don't want to say playing their best baseball, because I don't think these teams have been playing their best baseball, but it's been a fun series to watch. It's been a heart-racing series. It's been one of those series where it feels like at any moment either of these teams could collapse, and we saw the most lead changes in the history of playoff baseball in Game 1 of this series. We talked about it on yesterday's show, but last night's game was no different. The New York Yankees take an early lead off of Giancarlo Stanton double in the 4th inning. Then Soto has a sac fly to extend the lead to 2-0. A double in the 5th inning for the Royals gets it to 1. And then what could have been the play of the game, Juan Soto dives for a ball in the outfield, just barely misses it. Comes oh so close to keeping the Royals off of the board, goes under his glove, rolls back. It is a game-tying triple. But with 2 outs, they're not able to score Massey. He's stuck on third. Then we get scoreless for a while. The bullpen's really shutting each of these teams down before Giancarlo Stanton, the guy who hits the ball harder than anybody else in the game of baseball, the guy who is built like a semi-truck, comes out there in the 8th inning and just tanks one over the wall in Kauffman Stadium, a deep stadium, a pitcher's ballpark, one of the biggest stadiums in all of the MLB. It doesn't matter, into the fountains over there. Giancarlo Stanton gives the Yankees the win, and now they are 1 game away from advancing to the ALCS. If the Yankees don't make it to the ALCS, it is an issue. I'll just state that bluntly. If they don't make it to the ALCS, there is a chance they fire their manager. Now, I don't think they're going to, but I think there's going to be some angry New York fans if they don't win either of these next 2 games. Because, and not solely, because first of all, they have the expectation. They have Soto, they have Judge. They don't know if they're ever going to have that duo ever again. Soto is a free agent next season. He's probably going to come back. But there's a good chance that he doesn't come back too. It doesn't seem like a lock that he's coming back to the Yankees, but probably the number 1 option. I'd say 60% Yankees, 40% anywhere else. That anywhere else probably being 20% Nats, honestly. But that's a discussion for after the World Series is over and we know exactly what's going on. This is a huge game, a huge series for the Yankees. The Royals obviously have had a storybook season themselves. Lost 100 games last year, have now made it to the ALDS. Playing against the New York Yankees, the evil empire. They won a game. They had the chance to take home field advantage and win at home if they won the next two. Didn't happen. They can still stave off elimination in their home field. This is a Kansas City team that I think is really good. They signed Bobby Witt to obviously the big money deal before the season started. They are throwing Michael Wacha versus Garrett Cole, and that is just how it goes sometimes. The Yankees save their big guns for this one. They want to get out fast. They don't want to worry about anything, but Garrett Cole has been touchable. He's a guy that if you get too early, especially in the playoffs, if you get to him early, he doesn't settle down. So the Royals need to attack early in this game if they want to win. Michael Wacha has been solid all season, but he's not a Garrett Cole level starter. He's not a Cole Reagans level starter. If they can get it to a decisive Game 5, I think the Kansas City Royals have the edge due to pitching on this one. But it should be a good game. This is a game that, as much as I want to pick the Royals, as much as I think it would be fun for the underdog to go through, this is a team that, again, lost 106 games last season. And as much as you can say that as a success story, because it is, they're in the playoffs. They won 86 games this year. This is a good Royals team. They have maybe the most complete player on the planet in Bobby Witt Jr. We're talking elite and all 5 tools: speed, power, defense, everything. You've got it, the complete package over there in Bobby Witt, and he's locked up. You've got the old vet in good old Salvi Perez right there, having a resurgent season of his own in Kansas City. This is a huge game for them. I just don't think they're going to be able, with the way their offense has been playing, to attack Garrett Cole, get him off of his get him out of his correct mind space. That's what they need to do, and I don't think they're going to be able to do that today. I'm leaning towards the Yankees in this one, and I think the Yankees meet the Tigers in the ALCS. If that happens, we'll do predictions. Obviously, we need to wait for all these series to wrap up, but we'll do AL NLCS predictions when we have it. Currently, my World Series prediction is still alive over there in San Diego, but it's getting a little bit dicey. Should be a lot of fun. Playoff baseball has been awesome. I know it's competing with football today. I know there's a lot of competition out there, but go check in. It's not a sport you need to have on 24/7. You can kind of just have it on in the background. That's the beauty of baseball. Go check it out. It's the playoffs. It should be awesome. But thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in to today's episode of Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I have been your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Tomorrow, it is Friday. You know what that means. Game picks. We're going over the college football slate, the best of the year. We get number 2 versus number 3. Penn State taking on a huge opponent. We have LSU, Ole Miss, huge matchups happening this week. We'll break down all of them, and of course, the NFL games. So make sure you tune in for that tomorrow. We'll be back here same time, same place for all of that and more. I will see you then. You all have a good one. Bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Then tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna. Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Then tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn, ain't that great.